How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Scoreboard Talk. Scoreboard Talk is a sports podcast by fans for fans. We'll talk college football and basketball, NBA, NFL, and MLB, plus discuss the week's top stories and more right here on Scoreboard Talk. How's it going, everyone? Like the intro stated, my name is Brian Hall, and this is Scoreboard Talk, the sports podcast by fans for fans. And this is our first episode, and a little bit of an introductory here, a little bit about me. I'm a big-time sports fan. I'm hoping to become a sports broadcaster here sometime. I'm working a little bit of radio, and I really wanted to start a sports podcast so we could, just chit-chat about sports, go over some of the top stories, and just, have fun with it. So on tap for today, we're going to talk a lot about football. As most of you may know, Kareem Hunt and the Browns, that's a thing now. The Browns took a chance on him. Joe Flacco and the Broncos, what this means for the NFL draft, and Case Keenum, the current starting quarterback. And the Bengals are still looking for a defensive coordinator. We'll tell a little bit more about that. And a little bit of sidebar about the New Orleans Saints, or just New Orleans sports teams in general. And the the Alliance of American Football, what I'd like to see and my thoughts on it. So let's just get right into it. Kareem Hunt, the Browns just signed him to a 1-year deal, $1.1 million. For those of you that don't know, Kareem Hunt was kicked off the team, the Kansas City Chiefs, after he was having a pretty solid year. A disturbing video of him abusing a woman during an altercation. It was kicking and shoving. Once that video released, he was immediately kicked off the Chiefs team. He's been going through some, kind of your rehabilitation stuff. He's been on the commissioner's exempt list, and he's been there ever since until now. With Cleveland picked him up with a $1 million deal. Now the deal is that his base salary will pay him a total of $645,000. He will also get paid $25,000 bonus every game he's on the active roster. And the only way he can earn the money if he's all active for all 16 games, which we don't know. There's a potential suspension coming for Hunt. He could be suspended as low as 4 games, or he could be suspended for the entire year. Some of my thoughts on it. I think Kareem Hunt, I didn't really follow him back at Toledo. He really burst out onto the scene in 2017, and this year he seems really apologetic when the video had surfaced. And domestic violence is a very serious thing, and it should not be taken lightly. And the NFL has really dropped the ball so far with suspensions or kind of dealing with stuff like that. Most notably, the Giants kicker Josh Brown. Like, holy crap, that was a really messed up thing, and kept getting chance after chance. And so, I guess you're hoping that the NFL will do the right thing or kind of have a consistent punishment, but we're not really sure. And from what it seems to be is Kareem Hunt has he's tried to move past it, and he's sorry for what had happened. And so I guess Cleveland, they've been making moves. They drafted Baker Mayfield. Baker, he had a pretty solid year. I believe they went 6-7-1. And that's pretty good for a team that didn't win any games the previous year. And they hired Freddie Kitchens, the offensive coordinator, which to be honest with y'all, I really didn't think that was a good idea. Kitchens has never been a head coach, but we'll have to see. The big thing in the NFL right now, Sean McVay, he's the Rams head coach. He was an OC, and now everyone's trying to get the young offensive-minded guy. Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears, which the Bears put it together pretty good this year. but everyone's trying to find the next Sean McVay, or they're just trying to follow suit. And so Kitchens got the job. I didn't think Greg Williams did a bad job as head coach. I mean, they won 6 games in 1 year compared to when Hugh Jackson had been the coach for 3 years, and they only won, I believe, 2 or 3. And so I was really hoping that Greg Williams would have gotten the head coaching job. But, it's going to be a bad PR move, but if he can, rehabilitate himself and get back, the Browns essentially got a steal, if that's what you want to call it. Moving on, we're going to talk about Joe Flacco. He's now on the Broncos staff after being the Baltimore Ravens quarterback for the entirety of his career. The Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, and now Jackson took over for Flacco after a Week 9 hip injury, and they didn't turn back since. Jackson, he did a pretty solid job. I think it's going to be good for Baltimore, although I'm not the biggest Baltimore fan at all. John Harbaugh is going to do a good job, and it'll be exciting for the Ravens. They play good defense, and Lamar Jackson, he might not be the best thrower yet, but he's just a rookie, so he can learn, pocket presence and so on and so forth. The Cincinnati Bengals are still looking for a defensive coordinator, and this story is kind of weird because the original reports came out that Jack Del Rio was really interested in the job. He wanted the job. But for whatever reason, new head coach Zach Taylor decided that he wasn't right for what the Bengals wanted to do. Some speculations say that it was because they were worried that Del Rio might have wanted too much money. But Zach Taylor's only been an offensive coach. I don't think he would know much about the defense. But right now, the Bengals are in a pickle because they've had 3 coordinators now that have either passed on them or been turned down by Cincinnati. The latest being defensive coordinator Todd Grantham from Florida, who was actually really interested in the job and turned down a multi-million-dollar offer to remain at Florida. What's also weird now is that the Bengals had originally tried to go after the Saints defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. Well, now they tried to interview Saints defensive back coach Aaron Glenn, and he was blocked from interviewing with Cincy. And just a little sidebar here about New Orleans, and I really felt for the city of New Orleans. Being a Michigan fan, I've been in that situation where big game, everything is on the line, and you get screwed over by an official's call. They got screwed over the infamous pass interference no call, and then back in 2016, the Ohio State game, the JT Barrett, it looked like he was short. They didn't even measure it. Whatever you want to say about that. So I understand New Orleans' pain. However, they still had a chance to win the game in overtime, and they couldn't execute, and they didn't do that. Well, they had been really upset about it. And the city, they had like an anti-Super Bowl party, and at first it was like, okay, yeah, I feel for you, and now it was just like, come on, man, you guys lost, you need to move on from it. And you have that. If you go over to the NBA side, the New Orleans Pelicans, the whole deal with the Lakers, basically, making not fake rumors, but leaking out stuff about wanting pretty much the entire Laker roster for Anthony Davis, and then they had no intentions of trading him, so they really pulled a fast one on the Lakers. It was a big mess for LA and Magic Johnson, and now the Bengals, they're, like I said, they're in a pickle. They're trying to get a DC, and they can't even interview a guy because the Saints are blocking them, and I don't know what that's all about, but like, come on, New Orleans. I was really pulling for you, but now you just seem really petty. Our final topic today, we're talking about the Alliance of American Football, and I really hope the AAF, I really hope it works. There's also the XFL coming in 2020. They're just kind of talking about it. There's been a couple head coaches named. But if we could get 3 football leagues for, kind of break up the NFL offseason and the college football offseason, that would just, I think it'll work. I think it'll work a lot better than they tried to the first time. The XFL ended up failing, but people are putting money into this. They're backing this, and I watched it last Saturday, and it wasn't great. There were some moments where it's like, oh man, this is a really good game, and other times it was like, well, this is why these guys are in the AFF. They're not in the league, but if you could take something to where maybe you could create like essentially a minor league system, because the NFL doesn't have something like this, and because all AFF players, they get a 3-year non-guaranteed contract worth $250,000, and they can choose to go to the league whenever. And so if the NFL, they might not be like corroborating with the AFF, where each MLB team and each NBA team, they have a G League or a minor league team or system. But if the NFL can come in like, this guy, he tried the NFL, he ended up being a bust, he came down here, he worked his butt off and like kind of reinvented himself, and then give him a second chance at the league. And I mean, who really wouldn't want that? And so speaking of that, we're going to turn our attention to Colin Kaepernick, who reportedly wanted $20 million or more, just to even think about the AFF. And Colin Kaepernick, you love him or hate him, but I think that's a little ridiculous by Cap, that he wanted 20 mil just to even think about it. I mean, you haven't been in the league since 2016, and even after Jim Harbaugh was stupidly fired by the front office of the 49ers, I mean, they're still not at the level that they were even close to since Harbaugh had left them. And, Kaepernick kind of was on a decline. And so you've been out of the league for 3 years. It's been reported that he's been staying in shape. He's been working out, that he's in football condition, but 20 mil for not being in the league for 3 years. I think I'd like to see Kaepernick get into the AFF and maybe give him, like, if he can come into the AFF and play really good, then maybe the NFL teams, or whatever reason, they can think, well, shoot, like, why didn't we bring this guy in before, and he can get a second chance at the NFL? But giving all that money, the Alliance, they said he's not going to be playing here because he wants too much money. They're also courting Tim Tebow. I think that'd be pretty cool for Tim to get back into football. I know he's with the Mets minor league system right now, but I mean, he was pretty fun to watch in the NFL. Not the most successful quarterback, but the big thing about Tim was when he was in the NFL, he didn't want to change to running back or wide receiver. He wanted to be a quarterback. Well, now he can come in and he can be a quarterback. Speaking of watching AFF, on Sunday when the Memphis Express was taking on the Birmingham Iron, I mean, Christian Hackenberg was a starting quarterback, and he was bad. He hasn't been the same since his days at Penn State. I didn't really think he was that great at Penn State either, but he wasn't great. And so you could bring in a Colin Kaepernick or a Tim Tebow and maybe get something better. I'm not really sure, but the team stands as now is the Arizona Hotshots and the Memphis Express, the Birmingham Iron, the Orlando Apollos, the Salt Lake City Stallions, the San Diego Fleet, the San Antonio Commanders, and the Atlanta Legends. Just a little quick piece on all those teams. Arizona and Salt Lake City looked pretty good. They scored. It was a pretty back-and-forth game. Memphis got shut out, so that's not great. The Birmingham Iron, Luis Perez, the Division II quarterback, he looked pretty good. So good for Birmingham. Trent Richardson is on that team. Their defense was very stout. Like I said, shut out. Orlando put up a bunch of points on Atlanta. Former Michigan running back Davion Smith was the starting running back. Go Blue. The San Diego Fleet, they I didn't really get a chance to see them. San Antonio, the same thing. In Atlanta, they got blown out. So Atlanta and Memphis are kind of in that same two team that just didn't have a good opening week. Arizona, Orlando, Salt Lake City, and Birmingham, I would say they looked the best. And San Antonio and San Diego, it seemed there was that big hit from, I believe, Mike Bercovici, the San Diego Fleet quarterback, got destroyed. So poor Mike, that's going to be on every AAF highlight reel from here on out. But I'm excited. I think I really hope it works. I think if the AAF works, it gives the chance for the XFL. But if the AFF is already installed, we might not see, because if there's already a proven league, it might be hard for old Vinnie Mac, Mr. Vince McMahon, to bring in another league. And I think what the problem was the first time was the XFL wanted to try to be at the level or take over the NFL. That's league suicide. You're not going to be able to take over the NFL. It's just been a proven thing for so long. But if you want to work beside the NFL and just be a good organization, a good league. There was a interview on The Herd with Colin Cowherd talking to Bill Polian, the co-founder of the AFF, and he had said that we're not trying to take over the NFL, and we're bringing in a lot of football people for a football league, and that's the whole purpose of it. And some of the rules are pretty neat. They don't have kickoffs. They start the ball at the 20 or 25 yard line for each possession. When you score a touchdown, you can't kick a field goal. You have to go for two. And maybe some of the concepts that the AFF brings could make the league, some concepts that the NFL could think of, and make it safer for the league, or however they decide to do it. Well, I think this is all the time we have for today. Again, my name is Brian Hall, and this has been the Scoreboard Talk.